don't know me, I'm Rebecca Hunton. I appreciate you coming. I'm very happy you're here. And we're going to talk about getting clean for 2016. So I want to make sure we're on the same page, that our definitions are the same. So toxins, to me, is any substance that when it gets in me, it disturbs the body from functioning the way it's supposed to. So it can be a toxin emotion, anger. It can be mercury from eating too much of the wrong kind of fish. And it can be a whole lot of other chemicals we're going to talk about. To me, detoxing is taking those chemicals and getting them out of my body and becoming a little bit more aware and stopping what is coming in. So a lot of people come and they want to know, why do I focus on this? I'm an MD, and it's kind of alternative to talk about cleansing and detoxing. And the science is pretty clear. It's not whether or not we are toxic, it's how toxic we are. So they alluded to this in the little movie, The Toxic Baby TED Talk I played. And Vermont, in 2005, they took cord blood that they had collected actually in the 1990s. And they looked at that cord blood, and if you don't know what cord blood is, when the baby's being born, they put 2 clamps and they cut in the middle so that the mommy doesn't hemorrhage to death and the baby doesn't hemorrhage to death. And when they took that blood and they analyzed it in Vermont, we think of Vermont as being a clean place, there were 287 chemicals in the cord blood that weren't supposed to be there. In 2013, Canada reproduced the study and they found over 300 chemicals, and they didn't find any babies that didn't have any. So they found things like mercury, PAHs, PBDFs, there's a whole list, but they're all shown to be endocrine disruptors, meaning they disrupt our hormone system. They're all shown to create neuroinflammation. So we talk about these things being related to autism and mental illness. There's nothing on that list that's safe. So PDEs, flame retardant stuff, that's scotchgards we spray on things. That's one of the top 6 most toxic things that we find in people that shouldn't be in people. And we put them on our babies every single night. Kiara's not here. She has an infant. She has some really good resources about where to go to buy pajamas that aren't impregnated with the chemicals. BPA, I have a bottle on my shelf of shame in my exam room. BPA, bisphenol A, is actually estrogenic. So right now, how many have seen the commercial about a low T? All of us have. And one of the reasons for low T is that the guy's brain counts estrogens and testosterone as the same chemical. So if I'm going to be drinking a case full of these that sat in my trunk, because I'm thrifty, I bought the case at Walmart, and I'm not going to pay $2 for it at 7-Eleven, and it got hot. That plastic that gets in the water that they worry about is this BPA. And so I'm finding all the time, I had a guy today, estrogen 190 on his blood test. A man is not supposed to have that much estrogen. He's not heavy, he's not taking it, he's not doing anything. He's drinking a heck of a lot of these things. PFOA, the non-stick pan coating. It used to be you couldn't get safe cookware that was very inexpensive. Now you can pick it up even at Publix, Walmart. They have them as you go through the produce section. PFCs are those perfluorinated chemicals on that toxic baby where they were doing the placenta control. This is one of the things that they're talking about. Acrylamide, some of these we make at home. When we deep fry our little snapper that our kids catch, and stuff like that. It's the chemical carcinogen that is made when carbs and stuff are cooked at a high temperature. So we find a lot of acrylamide in humans. And then MTBE used to be in gasoline. It's illegal now to put in gas, but it's pervasive in our water supply. We do something here with a lot of patients called the NutriVal. It's a measure of all the vitamins that they have, and they pull some of the toxins when they do that. They report them out. I've never seen anybody that didn't have significant amounts of MTBE. This one, if you fill out the little card for the drawing, one of the emails, a lot of times people want to get this, is the types of plastics that are safe. And that's when you turn over the bottle, you can see on the diamond, and it'll tell you which ones. And so why is this so confusing? Why doesn't the EPA and everybody else get out there? Sorry, David, I walked out of your range. I gotta stay in my spot. Why doesn't the EPA do something? And it's partly because all these chemicals are primarily studied in isolation. They don't look at the 282 chemicals that were in cord blood at the same time what they did. They look at one chemical, then they look at the next chemical, and then they look at the next. And then complicating things is our genes. My cadaver in medical school died at 88 by hitting his head. He had smoked Camels and drank whiskey. He had more tattoos than what you see on a young guy today. The flat top and everything. So he donated his body to Ohio State for medical exploration because he said he did everything bad that a person possibly could. But he lived until his late 80s. So genetically, he was able to take all those bad things and get rid of them, you know? And then there's the commercial that was on TV a couple years ago. Who knew 23 was middle-aged because his wife had died at 46 of lung cancer. Her body wasn't able to get rid of what she was born or what she smoked. So it's complicated. It's very hard for the EPA or anybody or legally to say, aha, I live in X place and we know that there's this chemical from the rocket fumes that went over, that it caused the Lou Gehrig's disease or whatever, that we know is associated. It's very hard to prove legally. So they look at what, and they say, well, we feel like everybody can get away with a permitted exposure. And so that's what you get when your water quality report comes in. But remember, it's one chemical at a time. And really, really, as those chemicals compound in us and they clog up our pathways, we're going to get more into trouble than even if all of them are within the permitted exposure. So there's some websites that are pretty cool. They can let you score how your community ranks and what kind of chemicals are out there. So what's really cool is Florida, Brevard County. I screen grabbed this a couple days ago. We, in general, always have good air quality. That's awesome. We have the rocket fumes. Everybody worries a little bit about those. When we talk about atrazine, and if I could zoom in on that, we have a big band right around our area that is kind of unique, and that's from, you know, the Platts now have the grass-fed beef and some organic farms, but before anybody knew anything, the Platts and the Dudas used a lot of this chemical in the areas around here, like where Vieira and West Melbourne and Palm Bay are built. So the agency, and this is a government, United States government, Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, allows you to look at your community. And Brevard County is in the dirtiest, worst counties in the entire United States. We look at total environmental releases. That's the first one. Cancer risk score, non-cancer risk score, air release of recognized carcinogen, air release of recognized developmental toxicants, and recognized reproductive toxicants. We're not doing so good, Brevard County. These are some more of, if you scroll down the screen on Brevard County, of where we ranked. Part of that comes, there's a FDA or a EPA Superfund site at Harris Corp in Palm Bay. It's considered contained at this point, that it's not leaching into the water or going into the air. But that does bring our rating. When you're designated a Superfund site, that's where the EPA says, okay, not only are you bad, you're one of the worst ones we've got. So that hurts us. David, my husband, did a video on the history of Cape Canaveral, and one of the snippets he has is where the rocket actually went up and then came down into the canal intercoastal system. Those chemicals that were in all those oopses while we were learning how to fly in space got into our water supply. The base up here apparently has some things that they buried. And we do have a cluster of neurological diseases south of the beach in the South Patrick Shores Satellite Beach area that they associate those chemicals with those diseases, Lou Gehrig's, multiple sclerosis, to name the top two. But we can't prove that that chemical caused that person's. Lou Gehrig's disease. So the World Health Organization and UNEP came together and said, we really need to look at these endocrine disrupting chemicals and work on getting them out of our environment. So triclosan is one that they targeted. And I have to give Minnesota some kudos because they banned it. Right now, I think they're the only state that has banned it. It is in all those little hand sanitizers that we like to use everywhere we go. University of Florida, I'm a Gator, has done some research that shows that the triclosan damages the brain of the developing fetus. So how many people squirt themselves or grab the wipes on the way in Publix or everywhere they're going? We shouldn't be putting it on the kids at all. Germs are not bad for us. We were designed to live and be in germs. In fact, if you could vaporize my body and leave my bacteria behind, you'd see a cloud where I'm standing. There's more of them than there are cells in me. And they're supposed to be there. Now, we're not supposed to get sick, but that triclosan, that hand sanitizer, doesn't really keep us from getting sick. It just makes us toxic and hurts our babies. And that's not where we're supposed to be. Scientific American says these germ-killing soaps are what's hurting our dolphins. So anybody who lived here 25 years ago will tell you that we don't see nearly the wildlife out there in that intercoastal that they used to see. So where is it found? So triclosan is in soaps, hand sanitizers, cosmetics, toys, plastics, textiles, antibacterial pesticide linked to numerous health risk and environmental contamination. These are not like voodoo journals or sites that I'm talking about. This is like real research. And then the Environmental Working Group has a really cool app, I think that's next up, that talks about the chemicals we put in our lipsticks, and our face creams, and our shampoos. They looked at samples of breast cancer tissue, and they found that all of them contain parabens. Parabens are not something our body makes. So paraben-free is really important as you go forward in looking at your stuff. The EWG has, like I said, a mobile app where you can kind of scan and it'll tell you what chemicals are in the product and what to watch out for. But we're also very blessed. We have a couple companies here in our community. We have Absolutely Natural, which is Charlie Richards founded in 1983. They use all natural products. There's a factory store off of NASA, back behind where the Sears is. And they sell online, and they primarily sell private label. Like Maui Jim is one of their labels. But they're right here, all natural, nothing to worry about. We got Beach Organics, which is also manufactured here in our county and sold in a couple of the health food stores, and also has a webpage. They have wonderful products. I use their sunscreens from Absolutely Natural. I use the face cream from Beach Organics, but we have some good choices. We don't have to use the bad stuff. And then when we talk about GMOs, sugar beets, soy, canola, cotton, and corn. So genetically modified really just means that we've put a gene into the plant that allows the crops to be sprayed with weed killer and not kill and not die. So we keep the crop fields free of the weeds and allow the crops themselves to flourish. So glyphosate is the chemical that we spray. And this is, like I said, you're not going to find any TED Talks on this causing birth defects. We don't have the studies yet. But we do have glyphosate, which we do know causes cancer, even in things like tampons. It's everywhere. So you can't wash it off the food. It accumulates in the animal tissues, so the beef and the chicken bioaccumulates it. And anybody ever taken activated charcoal after they drank a lot one night to help with the hangover? That's a natural detoxificant. So taking the activated charcoal, there's a couple small studies at universities that show that charcoal can help pull the glyphosate out of your system. So I kind of talked about these chemicals build up in us, you know, if we're not getting rid of them. Unless you're lucky, like my cadaver, who got rid of them very well. And for me, we talk about how do we know how toxic we are, and how do we live and be human in this chemical age. And I don't want you to go to that neurotic place, because that causes health issues on a whole nother level. You know, if you're worrying about every single thing you touch, eat, and do, there's actually an eating disorder, orthorexia now, where you limit what you eat to such a degree because you're worried about how healthy the food is and how organic or clean the food might be. You have to control what you can control, and then kind of decide that when I'm home and the things that I bring into my house and the things that I do when I go out of the house, I'm just going to do what I can. And if you're in that setting or situation, like, you know, we had lunch today from Skewers. I have no idea if the chicken ate bugs or corn. I'm going to bet on the corn, and the corn was probably GMO corn, you know. So I ate it because that's where I'm at. But if you can control what you can and reduce what's coming in, then it's less of a worry about what's going out. I know that this stuff, when you start digging in, one of the books that's pretty popularly recommended by a colleague of mine is Detoxify or Die. You know, it's like, I don't like the scare stuff. You know, I want you aware and reframing things, but I don't want you neurotic. So cleansing in the dirty world. Most of our cleansing is done in the liver. Our liver is a powerhouse for this here. We have certain enzymes that process things, and then it enters into a state that's actually a little bit more inflammatory. And then we have some other enzymes that help us get it out of the body. All of those are dependent on nutrients. So it filters 2 quarts of blood a minute. So the nutrients for phase 1, the B vitamins are huge. Glutathione is huge. There's some minerals that are important. And even, it's a whole nother talk for a whole nother day about insufficiency of nutrients in us versus deficiency of nutrients. All the research up until lately has been about deficiency-caused diseases. Now we're finding that the body's pretty smart. If I have something that's in limited supply, I'm going to bring it over here for the most important thing, which allows other things to not function as well. So you can have a lot of insufficiencies. That's, you know, Lisa's kind of new here. Our NutriVal will show a lot of insufficiencies, but they're not deficient enough to cause scurvy, for example. So when I'm talking about detoxification, I want to make sure I'm bringing all of these nutrients up for phase 1 to where they're supposed to be. Nutrients for phase 2, there's a lot of crossover. A lot of the same things, but a little bit more oriented towards sulfation and glucuronidation, which are a couple of different pathways that happen to help us eliminate things. For example, glucuronidation helps us get things into the bile, and then the bile goes into the poo, and then the poo is supposed to go down the toilet. But we're going to avoid the most toxic foods. We're going to try and eat as clean as we can. And we're going to eat real food, and we're not going to be hungry, and we're not going to run to the toilet all the time. I often get asked about juicing, and I'm not anti-juicing, but juicing does not provide all of those nutrients all across the board. So I'm not saying don't juice, but when I'm talking about detoxification, if all you're doing is the juicing, you're not going to get everything you need. If I imbalance my detoxification, and this is something that Loma Linda University, Pepperdine, UC San Diego, they actually looked at loading nutrients in that might work on part of what we call the process of detoxification and measuring inflammatory markers, and it turns out that they go really high if you don't do it balanced with both the phase 1 and the phase 2. So I'm talking about the liver, but there's other ways to get rid of the toxins. So the intestines, the microbiome that lives within us, it helps us detoxify too. And on the flip side, it can help us detoxify. There's an enzyme that can be induced, and primarily in the face of a lot of antibiotics, called beta-glucuronidase. It's not made by our body, it's made by the bacteria in us. And when it's in there and it's in abundance, it undoes what the liver just did, and we recirculate the toxins back into our blood supply. So taking care of making sure that we're eating the prebiotics and taking the probiotics help us detoxify too. Kidneys, we pee it out too. How do you check if you've got heavy metals? Most people do a 24-hour urine looking for excretion. The skin, sweating is a wonderful way to detoxify. I recommend a massage while you're going through detoxification. It helps move the lymphatics and get things through. And then when I breathe out, I'm actually breathing out toxins too. I'm actually also breathing out my DNA. So it's kind of a funny thing. The law makes them cover their hair when they make my sandwich at Publix. Not that I would do that, but he would. But it doesn't make me cover my mouth. It's a weird thing, because then I'm eating that person's DNA. It's a kind of, like I said, you can go to this neurotic place if you want to. Fiber is huge in making sure that you get and eliminate the toxins. If you've not been eating enough and you jump too high too fast, you can get intestinal discomfort. And it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while we'll have a patient call and say, I've got cramping and stuff from taking the detox shake. And we say, okay, let's back off. And 99, if not 100% of the time when we question them, they really haven't been eating fiber. So all of a sudden they're getting some and they're not used to having any. So we talked about the skin. One of the things you want to make sure, I think it's the next slide, sweating and hydrotherapy. Let me go. I guess I don't have anything there. You got to make sure you hydrate. Hydrate, hydrate. Water, water, water. How much? The rule of thumb is half your body weight in ounces. If it's caffeinated, it works against you because it's a little bit of a diuretic, so we count it as half. People get tired. I can't drink water. That's probably one of the top complaints I get from patients when I look at their labs and say they need to drink more. I just don't like water. Put fruit, slice up some cucumbers, put it in there. Put some sparkling water. There's a lot of things you can do to make water more palatable. I don't have a problem with tea. Drink some green tea. We'll talk about coffee in a minute. I do have a problem with the diet and artificial sweeteners, though. I really don't think you can detoxify and be putting them in. Back to talking about how important the microbiome is, the artificial sweeteners have been shown to alter the bacteria in your gut from good to bad. So that's a toxin when you're drinking the Diet Coke. So how toxic are you? So I like to talk about we're the green pool. And when we're the green pool, sometimes we have to take extra things to get clean. So if I have a green pool, I'm throwing lots and lots of algicide, and I'm running the pump 24/7, and I'm scraping down the sides and flushing the filter. When I'm a blue sparkly pool, I don't need to do all of that. So how do I know if you need to make a change? We put an MSQ, I think that's my next slide, but the symptoms often give it away. That MSQ on your clipboard is clinically validated by the Linus Pauling Institute to be a good measure of toxicity. So you score yourself and see where you fall. If you're over 100, you're really toxic. If you're less than 30, not so much, but all of us, if we live in Brevard County, have some. So the question is, can I measure it in the lab? Kind of indirectly I can. I can look for markers of like homocysteine being high, which is your methylation pathway. If I'm not methylating very well, there's a 100% chance I'm not getting rid of toxins very well. I can measure things like C-reactive protein and GGT, which is a liver enzyme, to look and see. But I don't have any great direct measures of toxicity that I can run through Quest or LabCorp, Wusthof Health First, or any of our traditional labs. There is a test I can run, and sometimes the engineers want to know, but when they know it's not covered by insurance and it's like $675, sometimes they need to know. Yeah, I mean, they want to pay for it. At the end result, if you come back toxic, what am I going to do? I'm going to have you do a detox. So it doesn't, it's up to you guys. We have the task, but it doesn't make sense to me to spend that kind of money unless you really want to know. So our cleanse, what does it do? It's a shake. I started the first of the year just doing one a day, because you can do this even when you're not doing the detox, because most of us get exposed to something every day. But it's a shake that you add water, if you're me, or you put berries and almond milk and kale if you're somebody else who works here. You can blend it up. You can do it any way you want. I'm just the water, chug it down person. And it promotes the balanced detoxification. There's some capsules that go along with it, because some of the stuff tastes really nasty, and if we put it in a shake, nobody would drink it. So there are some capsules that go along with it. It helps get our urinary pH to where we want it to be. It has the fiber in it. There's two ways of getting it. There's one way is individual serving packets, but it only comes in berry vanilla. The other one comes in chocolate vanilla, but it comes in canisters. So sometimes it's a flavor choice. I like the vanilla. David loves the berry packet thing. So, everybody has their palette of what they like. So, Dilbert, Wally, do you ever wonder about your purpose in life? My purpose is to transport huge quantities of coffee from the coffee maker to the urinal. The young intern says, suddenly I'm filled with despair. And Wally says, hey, while you're up, fill my cup, basically. So one of the things that I get asked about, because a lot of us work, is can I do this in work? Because a lot of us are familiar with the cleansing your colon stuff. Absolutely. Like I said, I've been doing this for the last few weeks. I'm not running to the bathroom in the middle of our visits, to get things going. So it is not that. It's not running to the bathroom every 15 minutes because you're overwhelming your colon. What am I going to feel? So these are published case studies. They actually, University of Florida in Jacksonville, I have for the Bulldog here, actually was part of the clinical trials of using this in fibromyalgia. And so as you can see, their symptom questionnaire significantly went down as they were doing this cleanse. And here it is when they added in peripheral neuropathy and insomnia. So they captured some more symptoms. So it made people, fibromyalgia, Western medicine doesn't have any real good solutions, and here we have something that can reduce the symptoms over half. So how do you get started? On the first day, it's very gentle. We usually start on Monday. We have this talk on Wednesday or Thursday because the weekends when you can go shopping and get things in the house for what you need. But we start on Monday with just a shake and the capsules. And through the week, we're eating cleaner. We'll increase the shakes to 2. No limitation on calories. And I can tell you, I've had 2 people ever in 12 years say they didn't lose weight. How much did Eddie lose?
13 pounds.
13 pounds. His brother-in-law,
days.
who was a huge skeptic.
Yeah, he just bought another kit.
He didn't believe in what I did at all. His wife's a nurse, but they did it together, and Eddie had remarkable results. That's just showing how toxic he was. And he's not a big guy. He was not this guy who lost 13 pounds. He was this guy who lost 13 pounds. But the average is about 4 to 7. And so most of the time we like you to do 14 days. Most people seem to tend to only do the 10. That way it's only over 1 weekend. And you'll have some left over at the end. There's more in the containers than what you'll use up. Maybe another few days worth. But like I said, I even anyways do a little bit of this all the time. I travel. I'm exposed to things that, I drink wine every once in a while. So it just to help keep that basis of clean. I've had patients do a shake a day forever. It's really filling. It helps you not be starving at that 10:30 running to the coffee machine. So tips for success, don't overscoop. I don't know how often that's a problem, but it has been before where people are like the giant things. You know, you don't need to overdo. And then coffee. Coffee turns out to be one of the more toxic things we have in the grocery store. And that's because most of the countries in our world allow chemicals there that they don't allow here. So if you're a coffee addict, I have 1 to 2 cups in the morning. Going off coffee can create quite a headache, you know. And if it's something you don't feel like you can do, I would just ask that you either use American, like Hawaiian coffee, or try and get the organic. Paul Newman even has an organic that's pretty reasonably priced. There it is. Drink plenty of water. 64 ounces as if you're, a 160-pound person. I'm not. But, you can overdrink water, but if you can get a good 8, half your body weight in ounces, that's a good thing. If you're not regularly going number 2, I want to hear from you before you start on this, because part of this, I told you could recycle the toxins back into the bloodstream. If you're the person who goes every 5 days, then we don't want to be liberating toxins and putting them in your gut to sit there for 5 days, because there's a really good chance you're going to recycle them. So I'm going to be saying, hey, let's try some magnesiums and some other stuff to make sure you're moving every day before you start detoxification. There's only 2 medicine classes that it's a no-no, and it's not an absolute no-no. Coumadin, it oftentimes will help the blood thinner medicine work better, so your blood gets thinner and you need less, which is a good thing. But I always ask that if you're on Coumadin, you get it checked about a weekend, your INR, see how thin you are. And seizure medicines. Again, they'll work better, and so sometimes people can build up too much of a seizure medicine. Blood pressure, diabetes, there's no other medicines that there's a problem with it. Those 2 are the ones that are more critical. I want you to eat plenty of food. This is not a fast, don't feel hungry. So I have here a couple of things. Those of you who are detoxing with us, we have a weekly planner full of recipes that we're going to email you. We also have daily emails and daily Facebook posts of recipes and support to help you get through. But we have to know you want to get the emails, okay? So let us know. I know we have a lot of people who I think we've sold like 60 kits in December into here. People do this every year. Even people who aren't our patients do this every year. But I have to know that you want to get all those emails. We're not allowed to spam. We're not allowed, and I don't want to spam people who don't want to get things. There it is, and we can email a copy of this too. If you go through the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, they have an exposure history form that if you're really feeling like maybe you have issues from an occupational or where you live exposure, there's a history form there that kind of targets a little bit of, from an environmental standpoint, what to look for. Here's a sample copy of the report that you get if you spend the $675-ish to find about what you have. It shows you what to test. Those are the kits, and I want to look forward to you guys being a blue sparkly pool. So, just a couple of things. My Easy Health Plan, it really fundamentally comes down to just a few things. Number 8, detox mind, heart, and spirit. Don't forget, we're mind, body, spirit. And when we work on this, that helps our body get clean. But we have to work on positive thoughts. Right now, I have a couple apps on my phone that I'm reading every day that are kind of like look at your perspective. So think about this in a whole 360. Detoxing people out of your life, that's usually hard because they're mostly family. But if you can figure out how to buffer yourself from that kind of stuff, it makes you healthier too. We are not just a heart and a lung and a gut. We're spirit and energy too. And then my favorite Glassbergen, stop smoking, quit drinking, eat less, exercise more. Are you some kind of health nut? And I'd say that's me. And we're getting really active in social media. I was on the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine social media committee this year. And we're really trying hard to change healthcare from the ground up because it doesn't work very well doing it from the top down. So at AIHM, for example, we use Twitter. We got so many people, just the 5 of us on the committee and about 20 other people joined in of a conference of 900 physicians. And we got the news stations out there looking and awareness that there is an alternative out there. But we're on Twitter. That I usually am quiet on that except when I'm at a conference. And then I'll put little blurbs out of the things I'm learning. Periscope is what we're doing now so that you don't have to be here to listen to our talks if you're a Periscoper, because they will stream live, and like you see, I walk out of the camera sometime, I'm sorry. And then David's taping it to put it up on our Facebook page and our web page. They're not professional productions, but just to get education out there. But I want to thank you guys for coming. I want to answer questions now.